this episode is dedicated to our good friend Preston, who gave us this idea. Thank you, Preston, for both being a Patreon and a friend of the show. We always do appreciate your support, and we appreciate your kind emails and ideas. If you are interested in sending in an idea to Ubercube, you can reach us out on the Ubercube MTG podcast at gmail.com or reach us on our Discord. No, you do not have to be a Patreon, but if you love what you're listening to, consider it. It's fine. It's like we did the Sarah McLachlan in the Arms of the Angels. But other than that, welcome to Ubercube, the podcast we discuss all things Cube, but with refreshments. This is your host, Anthony Adams, a.k.a. Uber Bear. And also, before I introduce my other buddy, I want to give a shout-out our cool friends that I got to hang out this week. Thank you, Tulsa, for being so kind to me. Both Bones and Cade got to rock a little cube with them. And now, who else is with me today?
It's just Stu, and I'm not going back to the old Just Stu moniker. I don't know where that really came from. But anyway, it is only, maybe that's a better way of describing it. It's only Anthony and I today. So
Stu Prime.
Stu Prime. I like that. Let's go with that. Stu Prime.
So, Preston, thank you for this idea. We always look for ideas from our listeners and from our fans and anybody that's interested. We're open to feedback. And in this particular one, Preston's like, hey, I noticed that, the gang hasn't talked about... we talked about the road to KubeCon, and we were fortunate enough to have a good friend, Brian Cowell, on the show. But what we haven't focused on is our cubes, our preparation, and kind of what we're going through. So in this particular episode, what you can get out of it as the listener is, I guess, I'm going to tell you how I have modified or updated 3 of my cubes in preparation for the biggest event in the cube world right now. And I just want to kind of talk about that from a very casual standpoint, what I've done, what we've learned, and we'll kind of go through all 3 of them, I think, if we have time for it.
I think, this is going to be a kind of an easygoing, probably a shorter episode than most because, KubeCon is coming up, like Anthony said, and there's probably a lot of driving, a lot of traveling in general, a lot of cubing playing.
Hours,
It was for us, 16, 17 hours. So we're going to keep this kind of short and sweet, if you will.
We'll see if we can do that. Stu likes to go on his. I got a question
I'm
for you.
rant-free today.
I've got a question for you. It's only 5.5 minutes long. What do you think about that, Stu?
Okay. I'm gonna say it's great.
It's great. Sounds good. Hey, so before we get going, Stu decided to splurge. We're on a sour trip right now. We just had a good sour at our local brewery.
It was, yes.
Oak City. What was that you got?
That's a great question. I can't tell you what the name of it was.
Oh, something pucker. Something pucker.
It was something pucker.
Something pucker.
Pucker up.
Pucker up. There you go.
Pucker up. Is that right?
What are we
Cool.
having now?
Today, I have decided to, splash out. Is that right? It was 20 something bucks.
It was a lot, but when you think about it, you pay about $5 per beer at the brewery.
Exactly.
So you're not really splurging.
No, but you remember when drinking at home used to be so much cheaper than going out? It's not the case anymore, is it?
Yeah, that PBR.
These are kind of fancy.
These are not PBR prices.
These aren't the back in the day, like $8.99 case of Keystone Light to drink out. Yeah, no. So anyway, this is a Hopfly blender, right? So that's and the can is very, very pretty. And it's a pineapple upside down cake blender fruited sour. That's a tongue twister. But I'm pretty sure I've had one of these before. If not this, then they have a raspberry that's kind of adjacent to this, at least in the sour family from this brewery. And it is very good. Very good.
All right, let's give it a whirl. Let's crack it and see what we got here.
Oh, it sounded good too. All right. So what do you want to go first? You want to go Femme?
Yeah, I think Femme. Femme's the one that, it was featured last year at KubeCon. It's been kind of we talked at my magna opus, if you will, right?
Your magnum opus?
The most
is this what
challenging
you think so?
cube, the one we can't upload on Draft-O-Mancer, for example. Yeah, I did the
We could do that. It would be a challenge with the cards, having to match everything if we wanted to do it all online. And actually, can you even get all these cards online? I'm not sure if you can.
I don't know if I can get all these arts because I do kind of lead over into some of the, what is it? I can't remember the name, the little set with the Kickstarter, whatever it is. I don't know. There's too many sets, but...
Jumpstart,
Jumpstart, Bicycle, don't know. But...
You know what? It's interesting you say that, and I know this is deviating from the whole KubeCon thing, but that is a lesson that I've learned is there is a lot of backlog when it comes to online and the updating of Magic Online with some of the newer cards, and they probably don't prioritize a lot of the the specialty sets, if you will, with some of these special arts. So I can imagine it would be a challenge from a drafting on Draftmancer and then, doing a tradey traderson like we do with our cubes. But
So we have to treat it like there's a brand new listener before we intro each one of these cubes.
Tell them about this cube. Let's talk, because this is like I said, I don't know if I would agree that this is your magnum opus. I think your magnum opus is your artifact cube. But I think this is probably a very strong number 2.
Well, the conceit of this cube, the idea, the principle behind it is, I thought a long time ago, I wanted to take on a personal challenge and build a cube that represented only women. And it was kind of more of one of those, I get into my own headspace. I travel a lot for work. I'm driving down the road, and I'm just thinking of new cube ideas. I've actually put that, it's funny, I should say that, I'm saying myself right now, but I've put myself on hiatus for a while so I can turn off that part of my brain, so I stopped developing new cube ideas. Anybody that's a cube designer...
I don't believe you.
I know you're going through this
Don't
right
even
now,
believe you, not a little bit.
There's a point where, like, I've hit critical mass now. I think I'm around 9 or 10 cubes. It's time to probably just shore those up. And that's kind of what we're going to talk about. The Fem Cube has focused on the idea of women in the Magic multiverse. And through the help and insight of lovely women such as my mother, my mom, my wife, our dear friend May, and then Emma Partlow and others, I've received
Birds
feedback.
of Paradise.
Birds of Paradise. Yeah,
Shout
good
out.
point.
Big shout out.
Thank you for sponsoring this. It would have never happened. But in designing this cube, it's been really challenging to kind of go through and make sure that the art is, I guess, respectful. It meets the design requirements, also the mechanical requirements, the aesthetics, etc. And I'm always looking for a card that's been reskinned, if you will, right? So like a Blood Artist recently became a woman. I was super excited about that. Or Dark Confidant recently became a woman in the Jumpstart set. Super hype about that. I believe I got that set right. And others. Or even the Spider-Man, even though Spider-Man's been a contentious set a little for some people. I got the opportunity to throw in a little bit of spells. And to point it out, this is one of those conversations that May brought forward. How do you feel, Anthony, about adding Universes Beyond? Because the idea is to celebrate the idea of women in the Magic multiverse. Well, now we're going into the Omen Pass, if you will, right? But I'm okay
Beyond
with it.
the Magic universe.
As long as the card is respectful, and it fits a need and has, on theme, etc., it will go in this cube to help support archetypes. If you're looking at this environment as you come into CubeCon, or you want to look at it to clone it, whatever, it's I guess the principal idea, design of it. It's very like a very powered peasant type of environment, right? And that's because the restriction does kind of keep me in those lanes. So, for example, your reanimator targets might be more of a Galta opposed to, say, a Archon of Despair.
Archon of Cruelty, Gristlebrand.
Right. You're not going to find those in here. What you're going to find is big threats, but they have to be on theme. This is what we're looking at. So what we're going to talk about in this particular environment, what's kind of new to CubeCon 2025, where this will be featured, what changes have I made? So 2 overarching changes based on the feedback from 2024 was, well, I don't have a way to attack into your planeswalkers. I feel like your planeswalkers are maybe too strong. I can't get around the rivers, right? I can't find a way to cross over. I can't go wide, can't go tall.
Just put moat in then. I mean, there's your answer.
Yeah,
right there,
we'll put moat in there. But the gist is, say, Big Elspeth, Sun's Champion, was noticed as a problem, where I don't see it as a problem. We talked about this in a previous episode. I know that card's powerful. I know that's an old card from, say, I guess, Vintage Cube in the way back, right? Mm-hmm. But it's still a powerhouse in this environment when I just told you it's Peasant Plus. So we're kind of shortcutting here a little bit. The solution and what you can expect as a drafter now, besides the direct removal spells, which I do have those in here, or direct creature attacks, or burn, I added an unblockable package. There are cards in here that will give a creature temporary unblockable status and or something that will allow, to give other creatures from said creature unblockable status.
All right, let's talk about that outside of just the dealing with planeswalkers kind of side of things, right? Because so that's your primary reason. Let's go with that, right? Primary reason, wanted unblockable, wanted a way to deal with planeswalkers. What other impact is that as a mechanic going to have on the rest of the cube? So I'll ask, as an example, how much equipment do you have in the cube? Because there's other things that you've got to consider.
A lot lighter because I'm trying to stay on theme. Every time I see an opportunity to put a piece of equipment in, you have to break the rules sometimes. So recently, my Mana Rocks, I was able to update some of my talisman with art, particularly 3 of them. One was from Lord of the Rings, if I'm not mistaken. The other one was from Fallout, if I'm not mistaken. And then I can't remember the third. But each one of them had a depiction of a woman in the art. I don't get that every time, right? And so
That's reasonable.
The same
That's
holds
reasonable.
True, but with equipment's weird because I got to maintain the power level, so I don't want like a batter skull in here or something like that. It would be mismatched.
Listen, you were born in the 70s, right? So
Yeah.
you were watching television in the 80s, the 90s. Did you ever watch Xena, Warrior Princess?
I did.
Xena wielded a really large sword. So I feel like putting swords or axes or hammers or anything like that in there.
I do put those.
If you
things in
wanted
here.
to put equipment in there, I feel like you can kind of. That's not really bending the rules. I think for the health and the playability of the cube, I think those are fair addition.
Back to the unblockable question and what type of equipment. That's not the primary reason for doing it, but stuff that you can put in there would be like Rune Chanter's Pike, or maybe you can put in Shadow Spear, or Trusty Machete, or Kite Sail, which has... I look for anything that has art depictions, Bone Splitter. I know these don't always have art on it that represents a woman, but I have to make several concessions, not too many. I actually keep it pretty limited. And if I get a piece of art that does have that on it, I will add it. But back to the idea of the unblockable. Unblockable, it's a short play. It's not something you get to keep perpetually doing. But yes, I used my primary reason for doing that was the Elspeth conversation erupted. It wasn't a big deal, but it was like, I don't know how to get to this creature. I can't. So I wanted to mark a solution for it. Yes, you will have cascading or domino effect type things that may occur. Like it may fall into some of the ninjas that happen to be a woman, and it'll work well with those. I mean, you'll have side effects. It will work with some of your blink ideas into the ninjas as you want to bounce them back and get the ninjas to reset them, etc. with the unblockable creature. You will get that attack through to that planeswalker or just that lethal damage to that player. I realize all that. But I wanted to try an interesting and different solution this year to add a little bit more, I guess, layers to the cake, right? Make it a little different than, say, last year.
So I will give my take. I do quite like Unblockable. It's not you don't have the ability to interact with the creature, right? You can still destroy it. You can still counter it. So it's not like just a catch-all or, here's a threat that when it lands, good luck, it's not going anywhere. But I'm interested to see, I am interested to see how this just plays out, I suppose, in the real world. And I will say, the Planeswalker package that you're talking about, you got some pretty juicy Planeswalkers in there, right? Vraska's in there, like you mentioned, Elspeth Sun's Champion in there. I do remember the days where Elspeth Sun's Champion was like a powerhouse. It was a standard, absolute, just dominant in standard. And yeah, it was pretty prevalent in the Vintage Cube many years ago. It's also a 6-mana spell, and I feel like 6 mana should be at a point, and I don't know, you can maybe, tell us, tell the listeners, where do you kind of see the top end of the cube? And do you see Planeswalkers as being like, I don't mind if players get to that point where they've got that 6-mana Planeswalker out, that should be the spell that wins the game for them?
Yeah, well, you already answered the question. Yes, they're the peaks of power through intent. I wanted to represent in this environment some of the most, prolific, well-known women in the Magic universe: Chandra, Elspeth, Nissa, etc., Liliana. I want these to be in the cube, either through spells or through that. But that's kind of the thing. Back to stuff that I'm doing. We talked about Unblockable, but I didn't name any of the cards. I'm just going to give 2 examples. Going to keep it short and sweet. Stuff like Departed Deckhand for 1 colorless and 1 blue. You get a 2/2 creature, Spirit Pirate. When Departed Deckhand becomes the target of spell, sacrifice it. Departed Deckhand can't be blocked except by spirits. You can pay 3 colorless and 1 blue. Another target creature you control can't be blocked this turn except by spirits.
So this is not just an unblockable, right? Let's be honest. This is a 2/2 unblockable for 2, which is fine.
Yeah.
But it also has a pretty decent activated ability, and it does have the downfall, kind of like the what's the other blue card for 2?
It's kind of illusions.
Yeah, exactly. So when it becomes the target of a spell, sacrifice it. So again, it's not robbing the opponent of any way to interact with it. But I feel like this is a really nice balance piece to, again, give you that ability to squeeze some combat damage through when necessary, but also have that interaction piece with the opponent.
And that was kind of that core tenet, that problem that was brought to me. It's interesting when we get feedback from people such as a large, convention like KubeCon 2025, is you get a lot of people that walk up to you and they have ideas. So this is the way I approach this idea was instead of cutting the powerful planeswalkers, I wanted to give kind of a different dynamic to approach them. We talked about this previously. I believe it was Cade that was on the episode we interviewed, and we talked about this specific solution. The other one that I put in here was Allura Merry Thief. For 2 colorless and 1 blue, you get a 3/2. Legendary creature, Halfling Rogue. Whenever you attack, up to 1 target attacking creature can't be blocked this turn. Return that creature to its owner's hand at the beginning of the next end step. Now, that'll play into something that's a little bit more than just I attacked, I hit. Now you can tie that into something like Spider Bite, the Web Warden, which is one of my new additions. For 2 colorless and 1 blue, you get a 2/2, legendary creature, Spider Avatar Hero. When Spider Bite enters, return up to 1 target non-land permanent to its owner's hand.
Right.
So you can kind of start a little weird. It's a slower engine, but it's an engine. Because
it is.
In this, there's a Blink package. There's an Aristocrats package. There's a Light Proliferation package. There's an Unblockable package. There's a Minor Ninjas. Spells Matters. You can go on and on with this. But Control, it's got a lot of the elements of gameplay that you'll find in Sandwich's Peasant Cube, which is also featured at CubeCon. Not that the cards match, but the atmosphere, the way the game plays. The texture of the 2 cubes feel in a similar vein, even though I have, rares and mythics. But the cards are toned back, or cards of yesteryear that I want to have a chance to have a shot, and they meet this aesthetic of being a woman.
I also like this. So Allura Merry Thief. This has got some serious potential in my eyes. I really like the combo with Spider Bite. I also like the combo with something like Vendilion Click.
Yep.
So Vendilion Click, I don't think that really needs much of an introduction. It's a pretty famous card, but now you've got to, potentially strip the opponent's cards from their hand as well as bounce permanents around the battlefield. So I dig it. That's cool.
So you can kind of see the dynamic aspect of this unblockable package. And this is something that happened mid-year, right? This isn't the newest update. I've got one more kind of update, and it's going to be in my blog, which I'll include in the show notes, a link to this cube. But we're going to kind of, like you said, we're going to keep this a little short and sweet today, but I kind of wanted to talk about the differences and what you can expect. If you want to check out everything I've changed, I've had a whole year to do that. But there was another thing that was brought to my attention recently, because as we're prepping for a big event, Sandwich talked about this during a recent episode where we had his Pauper and his Peasant. We talk about it. Our feedback's a lot more critical before we kind of get to the edge of this cutoff for any event. I don't care if it's Capital Cube Champs or Uber Cubathon or CubeCon or Cali Cube Champs, whatever one we're involved with, right? Everybody that's curating or getting ready for those designs, they typically provide you a cutoff date, like, hey, I'd like for your list to be stable, stop moving so people can study. We try to get as many reps in as we can, get as much feedback as we can, and we're a lot more, frankly, more harsh. It's almost like in our play group, the feedback and the open suggestions get a lot less timid. We're more open to it. It's always like that last month and a half, right? In the beginning, it's kind of like, oh, I just added this new card. And we're like, Stu's like, this card's breaking your cube. No, it's not. And we'll sit there and argue about it. But then when we get closer to the edge, Stu goes, this card's breaking your cube. You know what? You might be right. It's interesting how that works, right?
Yeah, because I feel like your standards are kind of becoming a lot tighter when you're coming up to a big event like that, right? I think it's natural that if you're just playing with your friend group, at an LGS or at a house or whatever, then someone comes up to you with a piece of information, you're thinking, okay, that's fine. Maybe we'll play it a few more times and kind of see where it lands. But now you've got potentially hundreds of people that could be playing your cube,
so you let
and
those
hundreds of people you don't know.
Shields down.
Yeah, now you've got you can.
Yeah, you kind of have to. You have to kind of start listening from your friends even, right?
Yes.
Like, okay, I get it. Mother Runes is too powerful for my Peasant Cube. It only took Chris 7-8 years to figure that out. But
it was from the very first time I played it until about 3 weeks ago. So yes, that's about right.
Back to Chris again. So we had a recent playtest where this is the open question. Like, hey, this is going to CubeCon. I want everybody to be openly critical. I want you to play through this, what you like, what you don't like. I'm running out of time. We're forcing this cube. I want to know. And here's a cool observation. I love Chris because he sees everything. You know how sometimes, and other designers will understand this, where you kind of become a little one-dimensional in your thought process. Even when I said, unblockables attack planeswalkers. I mean, I know it's a lot more layered than that.
Correct.
But you'll go off into this rabbit hole you'll never get out of as you do that, right? In this case, he was like, well, I tried your Reanimator package out, and he enjoyed it very much with the Galtas and things we alluded to, right? The things you want to bend, the big big whatever that you put in there, Emrakul, whatnot, is all in there. He's like, well, if I don't discard it or I don't have it die, I don't have a way to bin it in my yard. It's funny because his specialty, he's really good at graveyard synergy cubes. Like that, even though I have a horror cube, shockingly enough, I'm not the best at the understanding of the churning of the graveyard.
Chris is a Sultai player at heart, and he has this graveyard synergy cube, right? And he has a Sultai combo cube. So those kind of match with that kind of vibe of getting stuff into and out of the graveyard.
So during our playtest, it's almost like I had blinders on, and I only had 2/3 of the complex equation that we call Reanimator, right? If you really think about it, it's easy to overlook it. I had certain because I'm a very symmetry-based cube designer. I'm a spreadsheets aesthetics through and through. I just do that. Not everybody, to each their own. That's my style. And when I choose to put a card in a slot, sometimes I can't see the forest for the trees, or I don't want to give up something that I think is so great, so special, for something like we're going to talk about now, where he's saying, well, you gave me 2/3 of this idea Reanimator. Yes, I've got Reanimate in my hand. Unless I draw it, then I discard it, and or you kill it. The card Victimize came into challenge here. He's like, how do I pull this off? So Victimize reads 2 colorless and 1 black. Sorcery. Choose 2 target creature cards in your graveyard, sacrifice a creature. If you do, return the chosen cards to the battlefield tapped. Now that's in here, and it's got a great, I think it's Zancha that's in here. It's a great piece of art. Love it. But
I think it's an underrated card.
It's underrated.
Period. I think Victimize is really, really good.
It's very good. But I had such a linear thought. Like, I'm looking to put Reanimator cards in there, and while Victimize is really, really good, you kind of get lost in the sauce with stuff like Reanimate and these cards that definitely on the tin do what they say. But this card's what Chris saw, sparked the conversation. This is an engine, if you will, right? This is an idea that I need to have 2 cards in my bin, sacrifice this one, get 2 back. I'm going to try to win, right? This card has a lot on there, and somehow or another, I just totally looked over it. I mean, it's almost like I expected you to have discarded 2 cards or had them die in combat. We're on turn 8, and then, I Victimize. But that's not really what Victimize wants to be doing. This sparked this conversation. You see that?
Of course, yeah.
So now let's move over to the actual solution. So Chris just started I'm just going to give you some ideas. I'm just going to toss them out there. And, at first I'm a little, I don't know, what's the word I'm looking for? A little withdrawn from the idea. I'm like, oh man, this cube is so perfect. How could it not be perfect? And he makes such a case, right? Just like we came at him and we joke about our Mother of Runes. If I'm going to give it, I got to take it.
Yes.
I mean, that's how this is going to work, right?
Yeah.
This can't be a one-way criticism street, right? No. He's coming, but you know what? In my fairness, Chris, if you're listening right now, I only told you to cut 1 card. You told me to cut 8. But let's
be honest, though. He's doing that. He did. He's doing it for package purposes, not just because someone's yelled at him about Mother of Runes for 8 years. We love you.
So how did we end up doing that? So now I've got the idea of Victimize. It's kind of my target card, and other ones, the ilk of that idea. Well, I went ahead and made some cuts, and I put in Stitcher Supplier. Why this wasn't in here to begin with, I don't know. I just didn't put it in here. So whenever this creature enters, mill 3 cards. Then I put in Funeral Rites, because I started going through Scryfall, and I'm searching, and I'm like, oh, Funeral Rites is really cool. For 2 colors and 1 black, you get a sorcery. You draw 2 cards, lose 2 life, then mill 2 cards. You're literally, I know it's a slow step. This is peasantry, right? But you are theoretically drawing your Reanimate card, and then let's just go with Magical Christmas Land, bending your Galta. It's all a thing.
It is a little Magical Christmas Land, right? So now we've talked about the first 2 cards, Stitcher Supplier and Funeral Rites. Neither of them are like an entomb effect, if you will, where you get to go into your library and put a card in your graveyard. And they're not discard from your hand either, right? So now we're going to go on. Next one, Renegade Reaper, 2 and a black creature, Angel Berserker for a 2/3 flyer. When it enters the battlefield, mill 4 cards. If at least 1 Angel card is milled this way, you gain 4 life. So again, it's all very Millie.
Yep.
Right? Let's go on to the next one.
Before you go to the next one, this one's important.
Because
this was a tough. Before you do that, this was a tough one here. So the Renegade Reaper was in, but I want to tell you what I cut for it. Going back to my thought process of bringing them back, I cut Order of Midnight, which has the adventure sorcery on it. Return target creature from your graveyard to your hand, and then it's a 2/2 flyer. So if I'm looking at that, one is expecting you to kind of already have the card in the yard, and this was a tough cut because you want to get that select card back and replay it, whatever, your blink card or whatever you want to do. But Renegade Reaper, the argument that Chris made was, yes, it's milling you. That could be awkward, but at least you got a 2/3 flyer versus a 2/2 flyer as the residual with Order Midnight that can't block. They're in a different hemisphere, if they will, but they kind of play in the same vein in a weird way. This was a difficult cut.
So the mill is to feed into this reanimate package that you've got, right? Let's be very clear on that. Order of Midnight allows you to get a card back from your graveyard to your hand. So obviously, yes, they exist in opposite spheres of what the cube is trying to do. Can I be honest? I don't really like cards like, and it's Alter Fate is the sorcery, right? So that's 1 and a black for the return a creature card from your graveyard to your hand. I'm not a huge fan of that as a mechanic. I'll be honest. I think that it can have its moments where you're thinking, man, I really want that one creature card back. It doesn't have to be a big giant creature that you're trying to win with. It could be a utility creature or whatever. But I feel like it's a little situational.
Well, you could play this.
You could
get back your Ewit, cast your Ewit, get this back.
You could. That sounds wonderful. I've already won the game, I hope, by that point, right? So, yeah, I think this is a very natural cut, but again, we're still on this consistent path of milling. We're not doing any selectively putting a card from your hand or your library into the graveyard.
Because I haven't had those cards printed for me yet. That's where we're at. It gets harder, and also I don't do
You're
cheaters.
looking at me like I'm the one designing the cards. If you're trying to,
I need you to make me one.
I have a job, but thank you. I'll see what I can do. Next one. Mulch.
I got that beautiful...
Love mulch.
Chris gave me that beautiful Rebecca Gay art, and it's just stunning.
Yeah.
And what we cut for that was Harrow, which is a pet card of mine. Also has an absolutely gorgeous piece of art on
I'm
it.
surprised.
But I had to let it go.
I'm surprised.
I had to let it go.
I did not expect. If you'd have,
it's a hard.
If you'd have said, if you'd have given me $30 and all the time in the world, you got to pay me for my time, obviously. But I would not have expected Harrow. I'm not going to lie. I feel like that's an odd one to get rid of.
We'll look at that, but it's too late now. The door has been shut.
The door has shut. The lists are
You can't come up with cool ideas now.
All right, tell us about Grapple with the Past. So this is another one. This is a green instant.
Yeah, so we talked about this. This is the first one Chris proposed to us, and May and I believe Cade was on this episode, or no, it might have been Lincoln. I'm not sure.
I don't know.
It was a guest on the episode. We talked about this particular art, and this one is in here for, as May explained it, in the original art, it's a 2-part series in this card. The original one was a little girl looking down the well. This is now said little girl. Now she's been emericalized, I guess, and really grody. But at the bottom of the art, or the flavor text, it says, Emrakul does not grant wishes, desires simply align to her will. So this was originally my flavor text bend until May informed me that this art was a little girl looking down the well and now has been mutated into whatever that is now. The tentacle.
Phyrexian tentacle something
spaghetti
looking.
Thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's going to be really good as far as helping that package out. Now, when I first approached this package, I kind of didn't know what the critical mass should be, right? There are existing components of Reanimator in this environment. This will bolster it. I didn't want to lean too much into the self-mill. That kind of, air quotes, taps it off right there. That's where this ends. I wanted to kind of know, like, maybe 3 or 4 cards to help you kind of bend that in. The idea of Reanimator in this particular environment isn't your natural form Reanimator you'd see in a powered vintage cube, right? It's a very light touch, right? We go back to the card Victimize, and we do have Reanimated here, but these are kind of your powerhouses, right? I believe at one point I had Necromancy in here. These type cards do kind of fit this aesthetic, but it's not like, it's more of a, what's the word I'm looking for? Kind of a value version of Reanimator.
I was going to say,
it's not your optimized version.
Well, this is always the sort of the secondary line that I look for, right? So if you don't have, first of all, if you don't have that entomb kind of effect where you are deliberately taking a card either from your graveyard or from your library or hand and putting it into your graveyards, right? So that allows you to be extremely selective of whatever the creature is that you're binning with the hope of using a reanimate or an animate dead or whatever. So this is not so specific. So you're doing, the mill is not incidental, right? They're in the cube for a reason, for that mill ability. But what else do they do in the cube is now the next question, because I feel like if they are kind of I don't want to say secondary. They're not secondary to the cube, but they're a little more difficult. They're actually a lot more difficult. If those mills don't hit one of those big fat creatures,
then they don't.
They're dead. They're kind of dead.
That's
right?
why I didn't critical mass. This is not a graveyard synergy cube.
It's not. So what else? Let's say Stitcher Supplier, I think, is the best example, right?
Best.
Stitcher Supplier is a great example because, and probably one of the more famous ones, it was one of the great enablers from that broken Hogarth deck from Modern, and I would probably, I don't know the Legacy deck. I think pretty sure there's a Legacy or Vintage Hogarth deck, right? So Stitcher Supplier, it mills when it enters or dies. So now you got 6 mil from one card, right? What else does this card do in the context of your cube outside of just binning cards for this reanimate package?
It doesn't. That's why I didn't contribute too many slots. I literally added just enough to support this package. It was basically brought to my attention by Chris. Golgari has kind of a false flag, if you will, right? It's sending off signals, mixed signals on what it's capable of doing. It was kind of like very mid-range, stay on top of the ground. If you died, maybe recover it with, say, Order of Midnight, maybe play it again, right? But it didn't have a churn to it, and he wanted to see a little bit more churn. But I didn't invest, as you can see. I had a few more that were on the list that didn't get added for reasons like originally I had, and I cut this. It's funny because you're coming to this closing, right? The door's going to shut.
Yeah.
CubeCon's like, close the doors, turn it off, no more
Tick-tock.
TikTok.
At least it's got to go
So
in.
I had Glowspore Shaman in there at one point, and it was basically for Golgari, creature, elf, shaman. When Glowspore Shaman enters the battlefield, mill 3 cards, you may put a land card from the graveyard on top of your library for a 3/1. I looked at it, and the card that I had cut for it, and I immediately put it back after I thought about it was Vraska Golgari Queen. I made a mistake.
Yes, you did.
I put it back. immediately.
Good.
This card is so good and so representative of what the cube's doing. And it's just makes those planeswalkers, again, Vraska is a key part of the story element of this cube.
Part of the lore.
Right?
Critical.
These are the big ones. Chandra, Liliana, right? These are the top ones.
Gotta have them.
You gotta have them. So I need to have that representation. Plus, this card is just amazing. So that Chris had put like a 360 view on my cube. Back to tie this off, this little small portion. When you, the designer, are looking at your cubes, this is why you want other people to look at your cube. Again, I can look at it from a 2D 40,000 foot in the air and see this linear kind of progression of how I want to advance something. But then I turn it over to, say, Stu, and he looks at it from a completely different angle because he doesn't have that. He has no dog in the race. He has nothing to gain from it except for, hey, have you considered this line? Do you really believe, back to the unblockable, it's simply unblockable, attack planeswalkers? That's it's almost a one-dimensional thought process.
Yeah, it is. But it's something you have to consider, obviously, right? You have to think about...
You have to start somewhere.
You have to start somewhere.
If you come from too many zones, too many directions on your cuts, you'll get analysis through paralysis. You start thinking about, oh, man, but this is going to affect this, and this is going to affect that. It goes back to the just put it in, just test it. Normally, I would have done that, but we're on a clock. Tick-tock, 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 right? I don't have that time. So this is last-minute changes, and I'm like, Vraska out. No. Vraska back in.
Vraska in.
You see the problem
Vraska
here,
staying in,
please. Then I just said, you know what? I'm going to add 4-5 components to this self-mill. They're going to get distributed through the 360 cube. Maybe 2 people grab it. Maybe 1 person gets mulch. 1 person gets Stitcher Supplier. Maybe they both get the signals, and they only do that. Maybe someone builds a really good churn Golgari deck. Maybe they don't. Right? That's just how this goes.
Yeah.
There's no way around it. I don't want to critical mass it or send false signals. Now, let's kind of talk about a few minor cards. We got this one card, and I talked about this I think we hinted at this before, the amazing acrobatics. We've kind of turned off the Golgari self-mill churning type idea. We're going to switch over for a few minor changes. I always look for neat cards like this. For 1 colorless and 2 blue, you get an instant. This is from the Spider-Verse. Choose 1 or both. Counter target spell, tap 1 or 2 target creatures.
Pretty good.
Yeah, so I'm adding this to the Fem Cube. Sandwich is adding this to his Pauper Cube. I have another copy that I don't think he added to his Peasant. We joked about this. It's a little bit like, I guess, Cryptic Command Timu at home. I mean, it's really good.
It is good.
And so I did make a cut for that, and this is the last minute kind of like cards that hadn't got played or tested. I cut Vesuvian Drifter. You can look that up if you want to. It was kind of just a medium card that wasn't doing a whole lot. And I thought, you know what? I want blue to continue to have that control identity. If I'm going to go back to attacking these planeswalkers, Well, this can be used to attack those planeswalkers, but this also can be used by the person that's commanding that planeswalker to stop you from attacking their planeswalkers with those unblockable creatures. This card has, some of this is on the nose, quite obvious, but this adds a control dynamic to the cube, depending on if you want to be on that tempo side of that attack, and you want to get in there with that unblockable army, or you want to stop that unblockable army and shut them down. So it gave versatility. And I love the fact that I don't want to go so far as a cryptic command for this environment, but I like it when I get a light touch. Again, this is a lower powered environment. It's peasant plus, if you will, right, on a thematic spectrum.
I think, and I do agree, I think that's a fair way of looking at the power level. Just on the surface, I like this card. I would put a big line between the two as far as tapping the creatures and countering the spell. I think I'll be honest, most of the time I'm probably, as a blue player, going to be looking at this as an extra counterspell rather than a tap ability. For the most part, a lot of players, if they're playing an aggressive deck, as an example, they're probably going to be attacking before they start casting spells, right? So you could maybe look at it as though, okay, if they cast another creature, I can tap it, or tap an unblocked creature or a non-attacking creature. Then I've got the counter spell option. So I don't know. I feel like that's a little fringe, but I just think as a utility card, it's really, really nice. Rip cancel. You will not be missed.
No,
not much anymore. Vesuvian Drifter. So let's talk about this card just for a second. So I'll read it because I think this is worth it. It's 2 and a blue for a flying 2/4. You may look at the top card of your library anytime. At the beginning of each combat, you may reveal the top card of your library. If you reveal a creature card this way, Vesuvian Drifter becomes a copy of that card until end of turn, except it has flying. I don't mind this card.
It's not terrible. I just wanted to get a cut in.
Nice little bit of utility.
It's fine. And I've got stuff like Preordains and Peaks and some Ponders and some Brainstorms. So it's not like you can do top deck manipulation to kind of get that thing you want to demonstrate here. So
I love me a cantrip, all right? I love Ponder and Preordain and Brainstorm as much as the next, filthy control player or whatever. But I like cards like this. I feel like in these kind of peasant plussy environments where having a board presence is generally a lot more powerful. I don't know. I like these cards. It's a flyer as well. It's 2/4.
It's
blocks really
neat.
well.
I made an executive decision to kind of tilt blue back over to, this is a great card. It's creature centric. That's where you kind of...
You're trying to pull blue away from being creature centric?
To be a little bit more
sense.
counter-ish, right? More counter draw. It's not that I didn't want it. It's a matter of I didn't have the slot, nor the time, nor the patience to try to find a better cut. The feedback was rapid at this point, right? This is what's happening before the doors are closing, before a big event like Cubone.
Fair enough.
Yeah. I'll probably, I keep all these cards in a binder. I'm sure they'll be like, oh, that was a mistake. You shouldn't have added the, Timu cryptic command. Maybe we'll find out about that, right?
Yeah.
It's a thing.
We have cryptic at home.
And then I got a few little minor changes, and these are kind of just final little things. I added in a copy of a braid.
Man, for TBR though, really?
Yeah.
Oh my god!
I never got to test Teamer Battle Range. I never got to test it. I know it's great. I know this is great.
TBR.
See, this is what's
my
interesting.
Soul,
this
my
might have
heart.
been like to the 6-hour countdown while in a hotel, panicking, and I literally had these two cards, and I saw a braid. I'm like, I don't know. And then the other one, this kind of goes into what we talked about on a previous episode. Finally, we got a snakeskin veil. We already had one that had a woman on it. However, that was like $1,000 magic card because it was made by some artist I've never heard of. So we finally got a reprinting in that newest Dragon set, and it's gorgeous. And I added it and I ordered it because we had talked about this, and we're going to talk about this again, how the biggest takeaway I had from CubeCon 2024 was, or the feedback and the complaints, and it was specific to the artifact cube, but was to add things that were temporary protection spells. This is what you and I were having as a side conversation. For those that don't know Snakeskin Veil, I'll read it to you because we can go off on a side tangent here. This matters because you got a cube you're working on. Snakeskin Veil for 1 green, instant, put a 1/1 counter on target creature you control. It gains hexproof until the end of the turn. So you've got your Diablo cube. And
right.
And I don't want to go off too much on this. This is focused on the Fem right now in CubeCon.
Okay.
But when we were talking about adding temporary protection spells, this is that vibe. This is back from 2024 where Chris and all of us, I think we stopped in Dayton, if I'm not mistaken, Dayton, Ohio.
Dayton, Ohio, yeah.
And we decided to just go ahead and play his Peasant Cube, and I had an amazing deck, and he just beat me to death because I went Removal Dot, Mardu, And he literally played these snakeskin veils, exhausted all my removal, and then beat me to death with creatures. And on top of that lesson, we had Benjamin Wheeler that played my artifact cube, and I believe the KCI combo went bust because they couldn't, I think that was the case, couldn't protect it, because at the time I didn't have ways of like interrupting or counterplays, essentially. So all of my cubes, the level up that I've gotten, we'll talk about this more, is adding these counterplay aspects to every environment I have now. Every chance I get to get something at home to the idea of Snakeskin Veil, and it may not be to that power level more or less, I want to see these type cards because they create tension.
Nice tension. I feel like any kind of either when you're facing combat or when you're the aggressor, I feel like these combat tricks are nice for that. I will have a fondness, again, my early days of Magic when I used to play the mono green Stompy deck, and I cannot tell you how many times I won a game with Aspects of Hydra. It was an absolute, if I could have played 8 of those, I would have done. So something like this that doesn't quite have that kind of, impact to the power and toughness that does, but it's a counterplay to a removal spell, grows your creature a little bit. What's not to like?
Yes, it costs you a slot. This goes back to when we talked about the top or the mid here with the Stitcher Supplier and the self-mill, and Chris looking at my cube, the Fem cube, through a different set of eyes. And the same holds true with other players at CubeCon at 2024 and now going to 2025, where now I kind of know the expectation is you don't get to just remove my creature without expecting that I might have something to thwart that. Whereas before, I would have been, all right, your creature's vulnerable, kill your creature's dead.
So let me ask
bring it back. Well, maybe bring it back with Order of Midnight. That was kind of a logic path that I was following that is faulted, and not as much of the fun of people using the stack. Like, there's nothing that makes people feel rewarded or smarter like they did the big thing
than using the stack.
Well, it's very right, the basic function of Magic.
I don't disagree,
but it's something excited about. You cast a counterspell, and then I counterspell your counterspell, and you counterspell me back. You feel like the smartest person in the world. Well, the same is I go to use my removal spell. I'm going to win right now. Oh no, you don't. Snakeskin Veil. It makes your players feel rewarded for their investment in the game.
You know what I feel like?
You gave them a temporary trophy.
It's not. I don't disagree with that, but you know what? I always feel like that I outsmarted someone.
Like you got them.
I gotcha.
And it's fun.
It gotcha.
It makes for better stories.
Yes.
So I wanted to incorporate more stories into these cubes. Make them less one-dimensional or two-dimensional.
Again,
right?
though,
Add
Renata? My heart. Anyway, I'm not going to pine on to your. I'm not going to leap on the cuts because you know what? You're the curator. You pays your money. You takes your choice. I will ask this about something like Snakeskin Veil, and I wasn't part of the conversation, so I'm interested to know, was that a efficiency of removal conversation? Because I always feel like when I hear something like that, like hey, all my creatures keep getting removed, I feel like there's always other follow-up questions I will have, right? So what was that around?
It's not. It's about removal in general. Just going on that one touch of something like a Snakeskin Veil and cards like that, temporary indestructible, temporary hexproof.
Was there a consideration?
Keyword temporary.
Yeah, was there a consideration to remove some of
no negative.
the removal?
I keep anything. I've got the paths and stuff in here.
Okay.
This type of card still has counterplay to it. It has layers. It allows players to feel like they've interacted on a higher level during that game. This makes really good, like, I don't know, all your friends crowded around you watching you. This is the thing that makes, oh, what? I mean, these are the reactionary cards. When you think you got them and you don't got them. That's ultimately what this boils down to. There's something about it. I mean, you could get the other side where they feel bad because they couldn't execute that amazing one drop that was, they're going to bolt you and they're going to kill that thing. And they're so excited. And then you go, no, you're really not. You're really not.
You're not doing that.
Right? You're really not. Or they try to giant growth their thing and then you interact and you go, oh, I'm one step higher than you now because I added a 1/1 counter. There's a lot of ways to make this card feel smart. And it creates then they see it and then they play around it. It's kind of got that Thalia Heretic of Cathar impact.
Listen,
right?
I'm about stack interaction. I'm about gotcha. I think it's great.
You feel when someone's got Thalia, or you've seen the idea of Mana Tithe or Force Spike, and now you always play that +1 up. wondering if they're going to get you, right? You're always counting they're tempoing you back. They're swinging you back. They're making you calculate your plays a little higher. Something like this creates that level of tension. I know we talked about this card a lot, but this is a whole dynamic that I've introduced to all of my my 2025 CubeCon cubes. This is a good focal card. I know we went off the tangent associated to the fam, but still, it makes people feel rewarded.
Listen, I'm a combat trick enjoyer. If you are too, then come check out Anthony's Fem Cube at CubeCon 2025. It'll be there, featured
Tickets
again.
are still available too, by the way.
They are.
We got to put a plug
Get
in
on
there.
it.
It is a really, really amazing event.
It is.
We'll take that second to notice that, and I'll include in the show notes a link to that event. By the time this comes out, you'll be, I believe, in the week of traveling to said CubeCon. But if you're local to it at that point, or you've got, your own private jet.
Yeah, to our Wisconsin listeners, get over there if you're not already. Hopefully it's not too much of a drive. And if you're, if you've got the ability to travel, then yeah, we've been champion and cheerleading for CubeCon for a long time, and it is a great event. It's going to be another wonderful year for CubeCon. I'm sure of it. Unfortunately, so I want to just mirror what Anthony said at the start of the recording and give a big thanks to Preston for, being a big fan of the show. He's been great. He's always given us good feedback and good comments, and a big one again for this one. And thank you for your email.
Thank you for Birds of Paradise for
thank you for
supporting
Birds of
this cube
Paradise.
again. I know we kind of ran through this, but I wanted to talk about what we've learned, some minor changes, what you can expect, right? Overarching, I'll include that. I love this cube. This cube is so much fun. I think our play group loves it. I got a lot of positive feedback from everybody at CubeCon last year. They're like, I even got a thing.
Very popular.
Someone said this week, this was my favorite cube, which is the biggest honor you can get.
I think
designer,
so. I
right?
think so.
There's nothing else you can really take away.
That's pretty good.
That's the trophy,
pretty good. That's pretty
right?
good. All right, big thanks to coming and hanging out and spending some time with us today. Go check out cubecon.org. Get your tickets for CubeCon 2025. Still a few left available, and we'd love to see you up there. Come hang out. Come see
the
game.
show notes.
Yeah. As always, I want to start out a huge thanks to all of our Patreons, to Patrick, Jeff, to Nick LaPointe, Chris Fitzgerald, Timber Dragon, Brian Christensen, Keaton Schultz, Lord Justice, to Preston, to Sam McKenna. A big thank you to all of you guys for just helping keep the lights on here at UberCube and all of the ongoing support. You can also use our inkedgaming.com/UberCube affiliate link if you want to get some nice large volume and custom products available there for your Magic experience, be it Cube or whatever else you're into. Come hang out with us on the socials. You can follow us at ubercubemtgpodcast.bsky.social or at ubercubemtgpod on Twitter. If you got a longer comment or question about this episode or a previous episode or just the podcast in general, you can reach us at ubercubemtgpodcast@gmail.com. We also have a YouTube channel, Ubercube MTG Podcast 747, if you want to go check out episodes there. And once again, a big thanks to all of our Patreons at patreon.com/Ubercube. Much appreciated for all the ongoing support. And with that,
we're going to say the thing that we always say at UberCube here is pineapple upside down cake blender has chunky pineapple at the bottom.
It does.
And I drink.
It's literally an upside down cake.
You did not warn me.
I didn't. I figured I would let you experience that.
What is this? And other than that, happy cubing.